Today on Northern Revolutions, I'm having a conversation with my good friend Glenn Calloway from the basement. He and I are getting together virtually to have a discussion about why record collecting in Canada is so insanely expensive. It's much more expensive than it is for our cousins south of the border in the United States. So we're going to touch on those issues today. I hope you find it interesting. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome to Northern Revolution. A special guest with me here today, my good friend Glenn Calloway from the basement. Those some of you may recognize from our weekly live chats that we have with Sam St. John on a Tuesday. Thanks for joining me, Glenn.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this one.
Well, this is a first for Glenn. We're fulfilling his lifelong dream of being on the Vinyl Community Podcast.
A podcast star. Who knew?
Who knew, right? This episode, if you're watching on YouTube, will also be available on the Vinyl Community Podcasts, which you can get on wherever you get your podcasts from, whether it be Apple or Spotify or Google or Amazon or whomever. Glenn and I thought we would have a conversation today. We have commiserated many times about the expense of this hobby. And I think Glenn and I have a slightly unique perspective, I think. Both of us being in Canada, it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive record collecting everywhere, but Canada's kind of in a unique situation where it's a little more expensive here than it is, especially for our friends south of the border. So we thought we would address some of those issues and just kind of talk about some of the experiences we've had and kind of what the state of things are today. So I think sort of the genesis, at least in my head, for this episode came earlier this year. Sort of the start of it. I mean, vinyl has been increasing in price steadily over the last few years, but back in January, three of the big Canadian labels, Warner Music Canada, Universal Music Canada, and Sony Music Canada, all announced 30% increase on vinyl record pricing in Canada effective February. And that is something that, I mean, that's a big increase that has affected, just about every record out there. So I thought that would sort of be a good place to start. I don't think that that's something that was announced in the States. If there was price increasing, it certainly wasn't on that scope. So have you had any experience buying some new records that
Too many. Yeah, I think you could probably say that prior to the increases, you could pretty much walk into a record store and pick a new piece of vinyl up for $29.99, $34 maybe.
Yep.
And now you're hard pressed to find new vinyl under $30. I would say $35 to $60 is now the range, depending on the title.
I'm surprised you can find things for $35 because I'm close to the big city, and just about any new vinyl I find is $40 and more.
Yeah, I think probably anything less than $35 is probably something that a store already had an inventory that wasn't affected by the increases. So I would tend to agree that probably anything that was brought into inventory after February 16th is probably at least $40 to even $60. I just picked up yesterday an album that I had on CD that I just absolutely love, and Kurt Weill's latest album, Watch My Moves, and I paid close to $50 for this, and yeah, I just looked it up on Amazon.com at 24.99. I don't know how you explain that, but
Yeah, it's crazy. There was when the story came out in the Toronto Sun that it was announcing the price increase. There's a local record store near me called Mill Pond Records. It's in Cambridge, Ontario. They actually took a snapshot of their order form or whatever, and they had everything listed by UPC, and it showed what his current price is and what his price is going to be after the increase.
mhm.
And there's some that almost doubled in price, and just I don't know if that's a function of supply chain issue. I don't know if that's a function of shortage of vinyl. I'm sure all of those excuses are going to be there, but I mean that's a hefty increase.
It is, and I think a big factor now is the Canadian industry to produce vinyl is non-existent anymore. And it used to be years ago there was domestic product and product that was brought in over the border from imported from wherever, Europe, US, that was always a bit more expensive because they had to do the cross-border thing and duty and exchange rates and everything. But there was always a Canadian industry quality I don't who's and that is non-existent now. And I everything is an import.
And I think I there used to be a record pressing plant in Montreal. I don't know if it's still there. There is one just outside of Hamilton in Burlington, Ontario, and
Yeah.
they press for all the major labels. I have a friend that used to work there, um, but I think most of what they produce ends up going south anyway. So there is no domestic production, or certainly not enough to supply the demand.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's too
It
bad. I did look up one interesting fact. I did that the vinyl purchases in Canada in 2022 were just over 1 million units. I don't know if you knew that.
re- which is astounding considering we only have a population of 40 million people.
Yeah, yeah. And that was down
Wow.
percent from 2021, but that could have been COVID, could have been production issues. There was a lot of problems getting vinyl for a while, so uh,
Right.
3% decrease is probably explained away.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, we're buying a lot of records,
For
and
sure. For sure.
you know,
It's there's a few other things I think that make aside from the price increase from the majors. I mean, the other thing that, at least for me as a record collector, that I find hits me really hard is there's a lot of stuff that I buy online. There's a lot of stuff that I buy on eBay because it's, something hard to find I'm looking for, or, a vintage pressing, or whatever it may be. Um, there's also Discogs, and there's even stuff that I bought artist direct. And that stuff kills us, at least me personally, more than the price increase on new vinyl here, because almost entirely when I'm buying something off eBay or Discogs or buying from an artist store, it, it invariably comes from the US.
hmm
So we get killed on the exchange rate from the American dollar to the Canadian dollar. We got to
absolutely.
pay a lot more in shipping to get it up here across the border. And chances are, if it's a bigger ticket item, you're getting dinged for duties and brokerage and customs and taxes.
Which
And
is the unknown amount. That's a
right?
surprise to get that bill.
Have you had it where you bought something and you
Oh,
paid your shipping and it arrives, and then you get that little notice from Canada Customs saying you owe us an extra $43?
yes, been creamed. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, and if you order from dead.net in the US, and they come out with these, massive box sets and everything, which if you're a Dead fan, you just have to have. And actually, one came in just around Christmas time. The latest one, 17 CD box set.
Wow.
It sells on dead.net for $179 US. By the time it's up here, it's $350 Canadian. I mean, around 250 with the shipping and everything. I think the duty was $80. I mean, that's a big bill when you get that unknown. It's if you knew ahead of time,
Right.
you might go, okay, I'm gonna maybe not buy this. I'm not gonna buy it. And it's
So
it's a big.
I went back prior to this conversation and I looked because there's one that really stuck in my brain that I really wish I hadn't ordered directly from the artist. We all have the Beatles Revolver Super Deluxe box sets that came out last fall.
Mhm.
So I bought mine and I bought the vinyl version and I bought it directly from the Beatles store, which was my first mistake. But I bought it. It was listed at 199 US. So it ended up costing me $266 Canadian plus $46 for shipping. So that's 314 Canadian. Plus I got zinged around 50 bucks for duties. I ended up paying $365 for that box set. Whereas
Wow.
if I just gone to my local record store, I probably could have got it for, 250 or whatever. Stupid on my behalf. Why did I pre-order from the artist? I don't know, but our American friends are paying 199 and we end up paying
Yeah.
365. I know it's not apples to apples because there's a currency conversion there, but
Mhm.
still, that's
I've had issues with Canadian artists where you order from their website and it ships from the US, and
yeah.
you wouldn't think that was happening. You would think it would be shipping from Canada to one Canadian to another,
Yep.
and duty, and it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the exchange rate has always been unfavorable to us. It's
Mhm.
always, what are we like a dollar? What are we 65 cents or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you can arguably say 35%.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean that always kills us. But then,
Yeah.
you know, there's always two shipping charges, right? If you're shipping within the US, it's one price. If you're shipping outside of the US, understandably it's more, but
Yeah.
uh for some reason, even postage within Canada is crazy these days. But that that sort of triple whammy of the currency conversion, the extra shipping, and the duties is just nuts.
Now
I
we could
mean,
be looking at the other side of the coin and saying how advantageous it would be for Canadians to sell vinyl into the States. You might, you're selling, you're buying in Canadian dollars, you're selling in US dollars, bringing in US dollars. And from that side of the coin, there's probably people listening to this who are going, "What are you talking about? I'm doing
I'm
fine."
making off like a bandit. Yeah, no, well,
Yeah.
that's true. I've bought I
Collector.
mean, I've bought a fair amount of records off eBay over the years just because it's often the easiest place to find something that's scarce or rare or,
Mhm.
whatever. And at least eBay's credit, um, you can see the shipping, you can see the currency conversion because I don't buy from eBay.com, I buy from eBay.ca. So it shows me the currency conversion. It shows me what the shipping is going to be. And if the seller is shipping through the eBay global shipping program, it often will tell you what they're going to zing you for customs as well. So at least in those instances, at least you know what you're going to be paying for customs ahead of time. I bought for my wife the soundtrack to the movie Almost Famous. They came out with a deluxe box set a few years ago. It's like, I don't
Mhm.
know, 5 or 6 LPs or whatever it is. And again, this one the numbers stack up in a hurry too. But I bought it off eBay, and at least I knew what I was going to be paying for my import charges. But I bought it off the seller for $86, which was actually a really good price because it was generally selling for more than that. But $86 American, and it was $24 and change US for shipping, and there was $16 US for import charges. So it ended up being 125.68 US was my final cost. So I bought it for 86 US, ended up costing me 125 US. Do the conversion, that $86 US box set cost me $172.
Wow.
It doubled the price of the
Mhm.
record.
Yeah,
And it is such a common problem.
it is.
I'm
Uh, It's funny, we talk about being part of the vinyl community, and being part of the vinyl community on YouTube means that a lot of people will send you records, and they call it VCLT, Vinyl Community Love Train. People just send you records just out of the kindness of their hearts.
Yep.
And there's one gentleman in the States who sent me and another Canadian YouTuber a box of records to split. He sent about 20 records in a box. And when he sent it and he wrote out his customs thing, he put a value of $1,000 or something, or 500, whatever value he put on the records.
Uh-oh.
The duty was for free records. We didn't pay for any of this stuff. Was $156.
Ouch.
How can even be duty on free something that's free? I mean, it's a gift. That's where just things like that are so frustrating.
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't received much VCLT, I think because of that reason that I'm in Canada, or maybe people think I'm a jerk. It
Yeah.
could be both, who knows? But I've got a couple things from a few people locally, and then someone from Switzerland sent me something that was absolutely incredible. But yeah, certainly a deterrent. And I think about there's lots of stuff that I would like to send to a few people in the States, but again, postage is insane.
Yeah.
Canada Post is very, very expensive.
Mhm.
So much more expensive.
The only way around that, it's not really like sending a physical product, but if you wanted somebody to get something new, I would suggest if you're an American sending to a Canadian that you go on Amazon.ca and you order it. You can do that from any in the world, order any from any of the Amazons, and vice versa. Like I had one gentleman just recently send me the George Harrison Live in Japan album, and
Right.
he ordered it from Amazon.com, had it shipped directly to me. So there was duty, there was, extra shipping charges. Where if he just would have went to Amazon.ca, ordered it, had it shipped to my house, it would have been half the price.
Yeah.
So there are ways around it, creative ways around it if you're selling. But if you're sending something out of your collection, you're in
It's
trouble.
it's interesting you should bring up Amazon because I have not bought I don't think I've ever bought a record off Amazon, but I know you've done a few and you've done a
I
few
buy
out of their warehouse sale.
most of my records are bought through Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I look at since you brought it up months ago, I look at their warehouse sales to see if there's any great vinyl buys, and you sent me a few that, like that Stevie Nicks one. I was like, oh, should I? And I passed on it because I didn't have the funds for it. But um, while we have those Amazon warehouse sales, we have nothing compared to what the States does.
No,
Amazon.ca versus Amazon.com. .com has way better deals than we do.
I fortunate enough that my daughter lives in Florida, so I can go down there. And when I'm down there, I always take advantage of the Amazon.com warehouse sales and get it shipped to her house while I'm down there. Oh man, picked up some. I picked up the Paul McCartney. What was it called? It was the best of Paul McCartney set, the set that he put together himself. It was a 4 record set.
Yeah, yeah.
And he chose all the songs that went on it. I
Right.
think 4 albums, $40.
Wow.
Look
Well,
that
there's
set up, a
I
$100 set.
I noticed, I think it was last week, our good buddy, Concert Buddy, posted that Amazon.com was having a warehouse sale on that Tom Petty Live at the Fillmore Super Deluxe, to like the 6 LP or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And they were blowing that out for like $89 American.
Hmm.
And I thought, I'm curious to see what Amazon.ca has it listed for. It was well over $200.
It's crazy.
And I thought, well, maybe I could buy that from the States, but then I'm paying shipping and it would probably still be a good deal. But ah, it just, our American friends have, because that's where all the records are pressed and that's where all the artists are. And, that's where the inventory is held.
Yeah.
They certainly have some more buying advantages than we do. Not that I'm complaining about it. It's just the reality that we're living in.
But do we not have a big enough market? Like, for instance, if you go on artist websites, some more international stars, like if you go on the Beatles website and try and buy something up, if they have as soon as you go on the site, it directs you to a US site or a UK site.
Right.
Why can there not be a Canadian site? Is there not enough money being spent on Beetle products that they couldn't offer a site for Canadians?
Wouldn't you think so? Now,
Uh,
the only artist I know that does that, and people may laugh, you go to taylorswift.com and you go to click her store, and if it detects that you're in Canada, it will route you to Taylor Swift's Canadian store.
that's awesome.
Now here's the catch is yes, I've ordered stuff because I'm a Swifty. Um, you can order it from her Canadian site. Where does it ship from? The US, even though you ordered from the Canadian site. And the other kicker about it is her Canadian site does not have as many products as her US site does.
Hmm.
And occasionally she posts or she makes for sale, fairly limited edition, low run stuff. Where does it go? The US site. And if you try to buy it from the US site, it says we're referring you to the Canadian website. And you go, well, shit. So
Hmm.
we kind of get pooched on that. But at least to her credit, she has a Canadian store and it's in Canadian dollars. And I think the shipping is a little more reasonable, but it's still coming out of the States. So
Well, kudos to Taylor Swift for doing that because I think more artists should be more sensitive.
yeah. I mean, obviously you got to have a big enough audience to do it. The
Hmm.
Beatles absolutely could.
Yeah.
Um and there are others that certainly could do it. The
Hmm.
Stones could do it.
Yeah.
Um there are others, but yeah, it, that's a frustrating thing. So,
Yeah.
um, the other thing that I was just thinking about when I was thinking about Amazon and how our American friends often get those sweet deals. And this by no means, I'm not crapping on our American friends at all, but the other thing that I remember back on, I don't know if it was Black Friday or sometime around, and there were a lot of videos on the VC, people showing Walmart in the States had that $15 record deal that
Yeah.
everything,
Don't Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, you name it. A lot of
you know,
stores.
there,
Yeah.
there are some people that kind of crap on the Walmart pressings, but there's a lot of people that say the majority of them are pretty good. I don't know. I don't have any Walmart pressings, but
Yeah.
it makes it more accessible and they're all
Mhm.
fairly mainstream popular titles. And I looked at some of those videos and I go, I would buy that, and I would buy that, and I would buy that. And even if they weren't the $15 sale, they're still selling them for, you know, what, 25 bucks is the normal price.
Yeah.
Damn, and same with Target. And they've got those cool, exclusive colors in that. To some people, that's a big deal. It doesn't matter to me either way. I think it's kind of neat, but if it was black, who cares? But it would be nice if Walmart up here would get into that, and I don't know why, because again, you would think that
I don't know why they don't either.
we don't have Target anymore because that was
I
a
There was
flop,
a
but
time the Best Buys up here, you were heavy into CDs and things like
yeah,
that. All that they dropped that whole music thing. I don't know why.
yeah, but you'd
Yeah.
think Walmart would see that it's been successful. Maybe it's not successful in the States, and that's why they haven't done it up here, but
You see certain stores, like for instance, the Chapters Indigo or Big Booklet, which is Canada's version of Barnes and Noble.
yeah.
They sell vinyl, but it's not cheap. I mean, and it's just kind of it's the popular titles of the day. It's your Taylor Swifts and Adeles and all that stuff. But it's 40, $50 for a record. They're not giving you any sales.
So we have an Indigo here, and I went. It was in
Yeah.
there a month ago, maybe, with my wife and son. I'm not aware that they even had vinyl, and they had one shelf of vinyl. They might have had maybe, I don't know, 150 records in total, multiple copies, but and some of them were titles I would be interested in buying, but they were very expensive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're top dollar.
I mean, case in point, um, Brian Adams put out a record a few back in January. He's kind of done what Taylor did, where he doesn't have the rights to his original stuff anymore. So he's gone back and re-recorded a lot of his greatest hits, so that he has new masters and can continue to make money off of them. So he released an album called Classics, and it's a double vinyl. It's only 3 sides, but whatever. And I want to get that because I like Brian Adams. And they had it at Indigo, and I went to pick it up, and it was $65. And I went,
Wow.
$65 for 3 sides of vinyl. No, I think I'm going to pass on that. And
Hmm.
I ended up finding it at one of my local record stores for, 45 bucks, which much more reasonable. But yeah, we don't have those, we have good indie record stores, but the Targets and the Walmarts say we will about them. It does make vinyl a little more accessible for folks, and we just don't have those great deals up here that can be found
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Well, because they have buying power and they can use them as loss leader items to get people into stores and things, right?
Yeah,
Which is the advantage to vinyl buyers.
yeah.
But yeah, we don't have that, sadly. Yeah.
The one thing that I've found to try and sort of skirt the vinyl expense thing, I'm a big fan of using Discogs. You ever use Discogs? The
Very
app?
rare. I have on a couple of occasions, but very rarely. I look. I'm a would Discogs browser, but
Right.
yeah.
So I've had the app installed on my phone for years, but it was kind of I entered a few things and had left it at that. But then when we were in lockdown during the pandemic and had nothing else to do, I sat downstairs for a week and I meticulously cataloged my entire collection, all the
Oh,
current
wow.
pressings and everything, which is great. And then I built my want list and whatever. So I almost on a daily basis go into Discogs and I can see when something on my want list is for sale on the Discogs marketplace. The nice thing about it is you can look for whatever country you want. And I tend to only, unless it's a real big whatever, I tend to only buy from Canadian sellers because then I don't have to worry about paying duties. My
Hmm.
shipping is probably a little bit less. And I found that a lot of Canadian sellers even have if you spend $100, it's free shipping. So I've had a lot of success that way where I've wanted to buy one record off of a seller that may have cost me 20 bucks. I'm like, but if I spend $100, I get free shipping. So then I'll look through it. I'll throw on a bunch of $5 and $10, cheapies, and all of a sudden I've made my $100 and I'm not paying shipping on it, which has worked out quite well. But Discogs, their marketplace is a great place to look for records.
In Canada, I find though the Canadian sellers are publishing U.S. prices, and then
That
they'll say, you know, $30 US for this record plus $30 shipping.
Yep.
I find myself putting it in my cart and sending them a message saying, uh, even going to the extreme of saying, "Where do you live?" Because if you live in the Toronto area, I could come and pick it up.
Yep.
I don't need any shipping.
Yeah, I've
Or
done
or
that
if,
too.
or can you work out the price in Canada for me? So and
Yeah.
can I send you an e-transfer, which is
Right.
electronic transfer in Canada. I don't know if we what they call that in the States, but up here it's
Uh,
but yeah, so there's ways you can get creative too to try and save a
has
couple bucks that way.
has that been successful?
Once it was,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Well,
bought
that's good.
a rare record off a guy who was in the Toronto area and happened to be coming out this way to visit family out my way, and I live about an hour and a half east of Toronto, and we met up off the highway, and he sold me a pretty rare record for $80. I was pretty pleased, but
Well, that's all right.
yeah,
That's all right.
yeah. So it can work. I mean, there's way, yeah, like you say, you can be creative and try and save some money, but I find, yeah, just I don't personally. I know it's kind of getting off topic, but I don't like buying records online. I am a kind of person who likes to go to a store and the thrill of finding something when I'm
Of
flipping
course.
through a bin is worth $1 million to me. That's like winning the lottery. If I go, oh, I've been looking for that, but I know I can find any record in the world online. Like there's nothing that would surprise me. I would go, oh, there it is. Like
Right.
that thrill's gone.
And you're absolutely right. I love that thrill too. I was going through a phase, I guess, during the pandemic where I was trying to fill some holes in my collection, and it was stuff that I knew I wasn't going to find in the wild. Like, for example, and I'm still working on this part of it, but being a huge Beatles fan, although you don't think that I am, but um, I have always wanted, like, I've got original Canadian first pressings of everything that was ever released. Um, and I've got all of the mono remasters and all of the new sort of, you know, everything that's ever been put out. But I've always wanted a set of original first pressing UK Beatles records, um, because they sound really nice,
Yeah.
and to me, those are the
Trails.
those are the real records, right? Like,
Yeah.
we butchered them over here in North America,
Yeah.
so I want the original artifact, how the band intended it, and there's just that tactile experience of the UK covers are different with the
Mhm.
flip backs, and so I sort of went on a mission that I wanted to kind of round out that collection, and I've got all but 3, I think, um, but I'm not gonna find those in a local record store.
Yeah, obviously, just things like
So,
that where yeah, unless you go to a record show and you find some
and
B-dude
even still at a I don't
something.
know that I've ever even seen one at a record show,
Yeah,
so I had
yeah.
no choice but to do
Oh,
eBay
yeah.
and Discogs and
Yeah, you're not gonna find those in a bin at a record store.
no. So, I mean, I've had to rely on eBay for
Yeah.
those kind of things, and there's other like, when
Mhm.
I was looking for my Beatles Butcher cover, which took me 20 years to find, I've only ever seen one at a record show, and the guy wanted a reasonable price, but it was more than I would be allowed to pay without getting divorced. So, I had to keep looking on eBay and until one day when the stars aligned and there was one at the right price that I was able to make happen. So yeah, I like the record store experience too, but I'm just kind of leaving that phase of tracking down some elusive stuff and filling some holes. So
Mhm.
I'm not as reliant on eBay as I used to be. So
Now here's another thing that's really it kinda I'm not real happy about it, is that there are stores that sell used vinyl now that aren't traditionally like used record stores. Like we've got a pawn shop out my way that sells a lot of vinyl. They're really getting into it heavy, and they use Discogs. So rather than them just bringing in records and putting $10 price tags on them or $5 price tags or whatever, now everyone's an expert.
right.
They go to Discogs and they go, "Oh, look at that! That Brian Adams album sells for $65. So that's on Discogs. So that's why I'm going to price it at." And it's unrealistic.
It's getting hard it's getting hard to find those honey holes of stuff that people don't know what they have.
Yeah, almost impossible. Yeah, because it's so easy to be an expert now.
Yeah. I've got one of those. I won't say where it is, but there's two of them. They're actually like indoor antique markets
Hmm.
where they have, they're open every day of the week. Vendors have their stalls set up and you just pick
Yeah,
what you want and take it to the central cash area. And both of the ones that are near where I am have a fair amount of, I mean, they have a couple record vendors, but then there's a whole bunch of other vendors that just have a box of records
hmm,
and they don't really know what the hell's in it. So I've had some good success there lately of some stuff. I'm like, "Ooh, I haven't seen that before. I've been looking for that," or
hmm.
whatever. So there's still a few of those left. But you're right. It's getting hard. Everyone's trying to get in on the vinyl boom, and the other thing I find is that often everyone's like, "I got a whole bunch of records. They got to be worth some money." There is more worthless vinyl out there than those that are actually worth something. So
Oh, tons of it.
you got to dig through a lot of crap to find some good stuff, but that's the thrill of the hunt.
Now, then the other thing is, so I mentioned when we were doing this that I was preparing for this chat was I went to visit a friend of mine who owns Zap Records in Coburg, Ontario. I wanted to get his take on this. He really didn't have a
What
lot.
did he have to say?
He didn't really have a lot to add in terms of just you know him buying records to sell in the store or something. But his big concern was that he does put albums on Discogs for sale, and the biggest problem is the shipping delays. Like if you try and ship an album, like there's no way of knowing. He says he'll ship 2 records to California to 2 different people, and one shows up in 4 days and the other one in 6 weeks. The guy's going, "I want my money back. The record never showed up." Well, did the record not show up, or did you? Because to have tracking, he tells me, it costs an extra $40. So
Holy moly.
as the seller, you're not going to put that out. And as the buyer, if someone said to me, "Hey, do you want to pay an extra $40 so you can have tracking?" You'll say no, probably, because no one's going to pay that.
Right.
Now, it's a so what he says, I said, well, he says, "I don't know if the guy's ripping me off. I don't know if he's being legit. It didn't show up." But he says, "You do these things through PayPal, and PayPal always sides with the buyer.
Right.
So even if you have strong suspicion the guy was trying to rip you off, PayPal's going to give him his money back and you're out the money." So there is some of that in terms of the people who sell on Discogs. You might be able to use that to your advantage to go, "Hey, I'm here. Here's the cash for the record." Like
Right.
you don't have that issue. So
Yeah. Well, I've kind of enjoyed the last. So back in December, I sort of put the brakes on buying new vinyl because it's getting expensive. I mean, as it
mhm,
is for everybody, but I just said, this is paying $45 for a single LP now is getting a little bit crazy.
mm,
And I haven't bought anything aside from a couple pre-orders. Like I ordered the U2 Songs of Surrender box set just because, but I stopped buying stuff on eBay and Discogs, and completely sort of changed my record collecting habits that have almost, I don't want to say gone the thrifting route, but I've kind of enjoyed just trying to find those used things at the flea market. And it's been a different mindset for me for record collecting, but
yeah,
it's been successful because what I've been able to do, and I'm sure you get this too on the vinyl community. You're exposed to so much, and other people saying you need to hear to this or you need to hear that, or this is a landmark album. And I think I have a decent record collection, but in conversation with everybody, I know there's some gaping holes in my collection. And so limiting myself to let's just concentrate on finding some used stuff. I've gone and got some of those albums that everyone raves about that I need to own. And it's almost been a musical discovery
mhm,
because I've changed the way that I collect records. So the vinyl, the expensive vinyl has actually been a benefit to me.
yeah. I find that I don't know if it's because as I'm getting older, I find myself uh using the law of quality over quantity. So if
Absolutely.
somebody, I've got a lot of records that people get. Like I had a good friend who gave me his record collection. It was a couple hundred records, and you know what? Of those 200 records, probably 100 of them were in great condition. The other ones were, like just all scratched up and whatever I couldn't use. But so 100 free records. But as I look through them, I'm going, "I'm so grateful I got them." But after having them for a couple years ago, I don't play this one. I never play this one. I don't need all these albums from this one artist. And I'm trading stuff in and buying stuff. So I'm using a lot of trade in value for buying new vinyl. That seems to be the way I'm supporting my new vinyl purchases these days because you know you just only have so much available cash. So
It's tough. It's tough for sure. For
mhm,
sure.
yeah,
So
there's watch people watching this are going to go, "You idiots! Why don't you just stream?"
well, there you go. I'm not a big fan of the streaming thing, right? For a few reasons. I mean, number one, I've got some friends that are professional musicians, and the money they make off streaming, if I can't stream because I feel like I'm ripping some of my friends off. But
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I just enjoy the
Oh,
tactile experience of
I got to have a physical product. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like to read the liner notes as I'm listening.
Yeah.
Um, and I like the act of flipping the vinyl and watching it spin around and
Yeah. I use Spotify for one reason only, just to check out if someone, like, especially on the videos we do, we get a lot of comments from viewers. They'll watch what you were talking about, and then go, oh, if you like this artist, maybe you should check out this, and they come up with some obscure artist I've never heard of. I'll go to Spotify and listen.
The only thing I will use Spotify for is to download the Vinyl Community podcasts.
Well, there we go. Now we've
There's a
got
sh
another reason.
there's a
Oh,
sh
what
there's
a
a shameless
segue!
plug.
What a segue!
There you go. I look, I have a lot of stuff digitally, but it's all stuff that either I bought digitally or I've ripped it off of the CDs that I own. So I own all the digital stuff that I have. And the reason I have a massive digital library, I'm a commercial salesperson. So I'm in my car all the time. I don't like listening to the radio. I don't like listening to CDs. So I have my entire digital library in my car and I can listen to whatever I want. But I own that music. I don't stream it. So
Yeah,
not
well,
saying,
I do that too. I put everything on USB sticks, but I
yeah,
for the car, but it's all stuff out of my own collection. I don't
right.
take it off the internet or
Yeah, same here. Same here.
yeah,
Not saying that, for people that are listening that are going, "Oh, you grumpy old man." If you want to stream, folks, knock yourself out. That's just
yeah,
not my personal preference. So
yeah. Me neither. Yeah.
so well, we're approaching our allotted time for this week's podcast episode. So I want to thank my friend Glenn Calloway from the basement for joining me to talk about the escalating uh pricing of vinyl record collecting in Canada and how that's kind of caused us to shift the way that we consume this hobby. So thank you, Glenn.
It was a pleasure, Rob. Thanks for allowing me to do this with you. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. For those of you that are on YouTube, thank you. And for those that want to take this on the go, you can download it from anywhere you get your podcasts. Look for the Vinyl Community Podcasts. Thanks, everybody.